Most men will never quit corn, and it's not because they're weak, but they refuse to fix this one thing. Now, I've gone over 470 plus days on NoFap and even cured my corn induced ED. And now I help men solve the exact same problems without spending years stuck in the trial and error mode. And if you fix what I'm about to show you in today's video, quitting won't just be possible, it will be inevitable. Now, number one, stop treating it like a side quest. Now, if you don't know what a side quest is, basically all that means is that you're not prioritizing it like you should be, right? You have all these different things that you want to do, right? Could be get in shape to make more money, get promotion, right? Maybe attract a certain type of partner, all of these different things. But the problem with trying to go for all of these goals when your foundation is not strong is this. Imagine you're living in a house, right? And you want to decorate the house. You want to put up all these different cool LED lights, right? You want it to be a vibe, you want it to be very cozy. But literally, if you don't have a strong foundation to the house, it doesn't matter how much time you spend. It could be years decorating the house, making it look super nice. What happens? If a storm blows through, or even something that's a light rainstorm or whatever, something very simple, right? Something that most houses should be able to sustain and stay there and stay in place. What happens is a little breeze is going to knock you off the course, right? And it's going to destroy the house. And this is no different with setting a strong foundation, right? So before you have all of these other goals that you want to achieve, it's important to know where your three biggest resources are. And of course, that's time, energy, and attention. And if you control where those things go, it will make it that much easier to solve and achieve all the other goals that you have, right? So if you try to do those other things first, the problem is you're going to have a tough time really putting the time and energy and attention necessary to achieve those goals. When if you would have just fixed your foundation and had a solid foundation, right? No corn, no relapsing, all these things, it would make you that much more solid and you would actually achieve your goals even faster, right? And this isn't something that you can just put as a secondary or third priority. It literally needs to be number one, right? And you can't fix your life, right, with leftover energy, right? You can't do all of these other things and then expect pretty much, a solution just to fall in place. Right, it has to be the main mission, and until you've built that new ground and that solid foundation, you're gonna keep going. You're gonna keep running into problems, right? Think about it. If you obviously going to the gym, right? You need discipline, you need motivation, right? But what happens is, think about it. If you're relapsing all the time, you're gonna lose the time, of course, that you just spend there. Then you're not gonna have as much motivation. And if you go a couple of days, how much stronger you feel in the gym. You literally feel like you could push more weight, you could do more pull-ups, push-ups, whatever it is, right? And plenty of you have experienced that. If you've gone maybe a day or two, you can even work out stronger, right? And then even in relationships, you look at that. Okay, if you're in a relationship, what happens? You have to put time, energy, and attention. You want to be truthful, right? You want to be pretty much the man of your dreams. You want to direct and give her instructions, right? You want to lead, but how can you lead if you don't even have control over yourself and over your own mind, right? So as you start to see these other goals, what happens is you need to become the type of man that can, go consistently to the gym, has that time allocated, can attract the type of partner. But if you skip steps and you try to do this before becoming that type of man, you're going to have a tough time. Now, number two, your ego is lying to you. And this is one of the biggest things people trip over, right? Because ego is tough, right? We all have an ego, and as men, we want to assume that we can do things on our own, right? We don't want to have to relinquish, right, and ask other people for help because it's just not the manly thing to do. But in this case, if you really look at your situation, right, how many times over and over again have you tried and failed? Literally think about it, right? You've probably relapsed thousands of times, and a lot of times it's the same or similar patterns that have happened over time, right? So if you've done this time and time again, what you really need to do is understand that the only thing that's holding you back is your ego, right? You want to push this to the side, think it's not that big of a deal, and you're telling yourself that you can handle it alone, right? But what that does is that keeps you trapped, right? And men tend to ignore a lot of the advice that's given to them, right? Because majority of people can even watch this video, but only 1% will actually even implement what I'm telling you to do in this video. And that's why people tend to get stuck time and time again, right? And even people that have beaten it, who have done well, have, gone long streaks like I have, you tend to not even listen to this advice because your ego gets in the way. You say, man, I don't need to listen to him. I can do this on my own. But look how far and how well that's worked for you. Not well at all, right? You've been stuck in the same place for months, years for a lot of people, and things have not changed at all, right? But the easiest thing you can do is copy a blueprint that works, right? And if you learn from someone else who has been in a similar situation to you, it can make your journey that much easier. And that's why I built my NoFap course in the comment section description below, which teaches you step by step how I solved all of these problems, the mindset, right? Even my own experience, right? So it goes into super detail and really gives you that blueprint. So you don't have to spend years of trial and error, but you can learn from someone who actually has achieved the type of results you want, right? Who has built the body, built up his finances, right? Who's attracted partners after setting a strong foundation. And if you're interested in changing your life and not being stuck in the same place year after year, all over time, and you want to stop lying to yourself about, making promises and then breaking those promises about you'll quit one day, you just keep relapsing and you can't figure out what the solution is, man, click the link in the description and the comment section down below so you can actually become that man and reach your full potential finally. Now, number 3, boredom is your biggest enemy, right? Boredom is a huge one because I always say you got to have some sort of schedule, right? You got to have things you want to achieve, right? Again, is it making the money, right? Is it working out, whatever it is? And again, it's not to say you can't do these things all at the same time. But again, earlier we talked about priorities and what needs to be prioritized. And you can prioritize, right, quitting the corn by doing these other activities as well. So they're not mutually exclusive. But what you need to understand is that you got to have structure in your day, right? You can't just not have anything written down, just kind of letting the wind blow you around and expect to have results like you want to have, right? And a lot of times, if you notice, when we talk about patterns, there are things like emotions, right, which could be a pattern. You could be lonely, right? You could be stressed out. You could have all these different emotions that actually influence your actions, right? And when you think about it, a lot of times people tend to use this as a way to fill the gap, right? Fill the void of something that they're missing, right? So maybe they don't have a great social life. So this is how they basically numb themselves so that it's not as big of a problem when, of course, all that happens is you get a dopamine spike and then you're literally back to square one. You've made no progress, right? So you got to remember that all of these things, right? It could be emotions, right, are a huge factor, right? Even stress, right? If you're stressed and then you just want to escape and then boom, you end up relapsing back to square one. So observing these types of patterns is huge, right? And understanding that if you don't have a plan, right, for where you're spending your time, it's almost guaranteed that you're probably going to have a slip up, especially early on. Now, if you've gone for a while, right, you kind of have that mentality now to where you've built momentum. It's a little bit different, but especially for the majority of people starting out, you want to have some type of plan, right? And you can always use a calendar, right? I use Google Calendar a lot of times to write things out, different checklists that I want to do throughout the day, how I want to spend my time, right? And that helps give structure to an otherwise schedule that a lot of times, right? If you don't have schedule and structure, a lot of times it will just end up leading to a relapse, which obviously you don't want, right? So being aware of these things, understanding where your time is going, is a huge step in the right direction. Now, number 4, emotions are fuel, not excuses. Now, we just talked about, right, emotions in general, but what happens is, although we talked about emotions as being triggers, they can also be used as fuel, right? So think about it like this. Think about an example, and this is an arc almost every man has or will go through. You're with a girl, and maybe it's the one of, you've been with her for a little bit, or someone you're highly interested in, and then things go left, right? Something happens, you get heartbroken. What happens, right? That's an emotion, right? Heartbreak, you feeling sad, you kind of feeling down, that's an emotion. And you can use that of two ways, right? Now, on one end, you can kind of feel bad for yourself, right? You can stay at home, eat junk food, right? Not work out, just kind of be off of your pivot, right? And you let it affect you. Or what you can do is use this as fuel, right? You can use it as fuel and basically say what? that she's going to regret leaving me. She's going to regret what she did, right? And you can literally use these things to fuel whatever you want. You can literally have limitless energy. And it's crazy because that's actually, I had a similar experience. That is what caused me to really turn up in business, do YouTube, right? Generated 6 figures on YouTube, over 50 million views on another channel. But in general, you have to look at these emotions as fuel to reach where you want to go, right? And it's hard to do these things because, we get caught up in how we feel, but as men, a lot of times we have to act pretty much, and as tough as it sounds, kind of ignore how we feel and just look at what needs to be done and where do we actually want to go, right? So again, you got anger, loneliness, sadness, and a lot of people just use these emotions to justify a relapse. But if you can reframe, and change your lens of this emotion and use it as fuel, right? And you can fuel this to go to the gym, to work out, to build up that social life, right? Literally, it will help you get to that destination that you want. And I'm telling you, once, and especially a heartbreak is one of those where when you get that energy and, you gain some momentum, you're on a streak, right? You've been retaining. It's like a fire that's in the palm of your hands, and your focus is so directed in one area, right? You're not all over the place. Your focus is on exactly what you want to achieve, right? You know the goals that you have, and you wake up every day asking yourself, how can I get these done? I have to get these done because I have so much energy within me, and I have to use this to achieve my goals, right? And that's how you want to look at emotions. Use it as fuel. And don't use it as an excuse to relapse, but use it as a fuel to reach your goals. Now, number 5, you've built a relapse ritual, right? So a lot of times when you look at the patterns, right, and we talked about patterns earlier on, you tend to lose the same exact way time and time again. Now, what does that mean, right? So you'll have, for example, maybe it could be Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, all these things, right? And these are actually triggers that you have. But a lot of times people do not really look into what they're doing over and over again, right? And a lot of times it's the exact same way. So same time of night, right? Could be at night, could be early in the morning, whatever it is, right? Then it's the same path where either you see something, maybe online or IRL, right, in real life, and then boom, it ends up, what happens? You end up relapsing, going back, right? So you got to look at what the patterns are for you and actually make a game plan accordingly. Because literally what happens is if you do the same thing over and over again, right, and you don't change any actions and just expect a different result, expect to use something like willpower to get you there, it's a finite resource. It's going to run out of time. But when you actually have a game plan and plug these gaps in your plan, right, so okay, man, maybe Instagram is the one. So all right, I'm going to curate things so that it's not looking as crazy and as enticing as it was before. Okay, boom, I tried that. Okay, you go one by one to what these patterns are for you. And obviously there are multiple paths to get there, probably, but for the most part, if you plug this if you plug the gaps that you have, it's literally inevitable that you will get to a point to where you're successful, right? So you really have to look at the cues and the triggers that you have. And if you can break and make a pattern interrupt with the type of behavior, it's inevitable that you will, go on a streak and finally get in control of, basically your lust. Now, number 6, social connection rewires you. I'll say this time and time again because I believe it's so important that you have to get around other people, right? So you can't expect to be in the same circle, same environment, pretty much all by yourself and expect for you just to be okay, right? As humans, we're social creatures, right? We're supposed to be around other people. And it's really not realistic for you to just be in isolation all the time. Now, I know a lot of people say you need to do that if you want to, achieve your dreams, get to the next level and all of that. But I really don't think that's the best course of action for a lot of people. And the reason being is because if you think about when you're around, you're being social, you're seeing other people, all these things, man, a lot of times you don't care, you don't think about relapsing, right? And it's showing you what? that we are social creatures. We're supposed to be around other people. Now, does that mean all of your time should be, spent hanging out with friends? No, because at the end of the day, you have goals that you want to achieve, but you have to have some sort of time, and it could be maybe one day. You could literally work. You could even work 7 days a week and then just have maybe an hour or two where you're like, okay, I'm going to do something social. I'm going to go to an event, something like that. But I guarantee you that's what a lot of people are missing, that social aspect. And when you plug that gap, it will make it that much easier to get in control again, because you're rewiring your brain and you're actually in a healthy environment. You're interacting with people and you're not so tied to the pixels, right? Now, number 7, quit trying to never relapse again. We got to talk about this because what you want to avoid is having this perfectionist mindset. Like, okay, I have to never relapse again, right? I have to be so perfect. Everything has to be this, this, and this. When the greatest advice that you should take is start, then learn, right? So you don't want to just be perfect, try everything to be perfect, never relapse. No, right? You always want to look at things from a long-term horizon and say, okay, I'm going to start and I'm just going to try to make progress, right? And even if you look over a year period, right? If you've reduced, right, the amount of times that, you fall into this, any type of reduction is progress, right? But a lot of times we get so caught up in the streaks, right? A day here, a day there, whatever. And you're so in your mind that when you think about streaks, it literally puts even more pressure on you, right? So we want to aim over a long period of time. And obviously, when you reduce that use over a long period of time, think about how much better shape your brain will be. You'll be functioning in your day-to-day life. You'll be sharper, no brain fog, right? You don't have all this social anxiety. You can go approach anyone you want, and you're good, right? You're back to how things should be. So you just have to take that first step and not be so worried about, one day here, one day there. Because at the end of the day, that will trip you up and you'll make even less progress. Now, if you're interested in learning more about these type of topics, click this video on the screen now.